Memories are like a torch you have to pass from generation to generation. History repeats itself, it's true, but that's only if you don't learn from your mistakes. If you don't learn from your mistakes, though, it's not only likely that history will repeat itself, it's inevitable.
So I guess my first question off the bat would be Zelda, an old woman with a slow step.
Yeah, right.
So what's the take on someone young playing someone old?
No, the whole point of the whole project is that it's a play and the royalties are free for even high school students. Mm-hmm. I want the new generations to kind of take the place of telling these stories.
They say that a child can't fully grasp the concept of death until the age of 8 or 9. I respectfully disagree. See, both my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. My grandmother, my buba, was the type who never talked about it. No matter how much you pry, no matter how much you push, nothing, you know? She would just kind of shake her head and say, it's too hard, too many memories. That's all you would get. And my grandfather, my Zeta, was the polar opposite. He would tell anybody willing to listen. And he felt like it was his responsibility. That the reason his life was spared was so he could tell the story. I remember when he first told me, I was 5 years old, and he just kind of sat me on his knee. And he looked at me and he said, "How old are you?" I said, I'm 5, Zeta. Not knowing where he was getting at. And his little crinkly little face that I grew to love, it just went totally vacant and dark. And he said, when I was in Poland, they gathered all the children, all the Jewish children, and they put them in a hole in the ground. And they lit them on fire. Just because they were Jewish. And he would go on, he would tell me these graphic stories, not sparing any details about how, babies, their arms and legs were ripped off with bare hands. The Nazis would just rip them right off. And how they would use them for target practice, like skeet shooting, Can't grasp the concept of death till 8 or 9. I had a pretty good handle on it when I was 5.
So I guess the other question would be, what's the significance of it being a play as opposed to being a film? What does the performance aspect give you?
You get just as much out of it as the audience because you're putting yourself in that mindset. And the audience, if they have a connection to you, like a high school show, a parent watching a child talk about how they're in the Holocaust, it changes your perspective. Like, oh, I always thought of survivors as these old people. Mm-hmm. Right?
It happens over there, it doesn't happen to me.
Right, exactly. So now suddenly, a 16-year-old is talking about it, and you're his parent, and suddenly, wait a second, what if it happened now?
It became part of my relationship with my grandfather. It was just he would talk and I would listen. I got used to it. That was who he was. That's how we interacted. And I got so used to it that I got sick of hearing of it. Sick of hearing about it, after a while. And it wasn't just me, it was the whole family. We heard it so often that it got tiring. And there's even this videotape of him on his birthday. It's painful to watch now, but he's standing there and it's his 70th birthday. He's standing in front of his cake. Before he cuts into it, he makes a little speech. And he looks around the room and he starts, and then he goes into the Holocaust stories again. Where he was, how we should never forget, everything, and all the kind of gory details. And we're watching it, and you can see on the tape, everybody just kind of starts rolling their eyes, not this again, kind of thing. And my mom starts cutting into the cake like he's not even there. We chose to stop listening. And when we chose to stop listening, we started to forget. And when he was gone, the details of the stories, they weren't there anymore. Those little tiny details were gone. All the pieces, all the little puzzle pieces of his stories, they didn't quite fit together anymore. When I chose to stop listening, I started to forget, and it scared me. It just scared me that I was forgetting what was so clearly important to him. So I made a conscious decision to start listening again. But it was too late. He's not here anymore. You know, the last thing my grandfather told me before he died was that he didn't feel like he needed to be a survivor anymore. And I remember feeling relieved. I was happy for him. I thought, great, he doesn't feel that responsibility anymore. But I realized seconds later that it meant that I had to be the survivor. That I had to tell his stories and make sure his memories lived on. So I try. Whenever I find someone willing to listen, even if it's just for 5 minutes, I'll sit him down and I'll tell him the stories that my grandfather told me.